It's essential to recognize that our military readiness has been harmed because of our troops constantly being deployed to go and fight and wage these regime change wars, toppling dictators in other countries, wars that do not make us any safer. So what I am bringing to the table is the experience that I have both personally as a soldier now for almost 17 years, combined with that experience of working on the Armed Services Committee in Congress for the last 7 years, the Foreign Affairs Committee, Homeland Security Committees, to make sure that the funding that we are putting forward towards the military is actually going towards that military readiness, making sure our military is focused on those missions that serve our country's national security interests.
And we had, of course, we're having a great price that we're paying from all these missions,
yes.
Special ops all the time. We're deploying the same people over and over again. We have a problem with mental health now in the military. Through the VA, we're talking about suicide prevention now. How would you address those issues?
I think it's understanding really in a first-hand way this terribly high human cost of war. And war is unfortunately sometimes necessary to ensure our country's national security interests. It is our military men and women and their families who are willing to make those sacrifices to serve our country. So it's making sure, first of all, that those missions they are sent on are truly worthy of their sacrifice as Commander-in-Chief. And it's making sure that when they come home, that they are not having to fight through layers and layers of red tape and bureaucracy just to be able to get the care they need, whether it's for traumatic brain injury or mental health care, post-traumatic stress, disability claims, all of these different things that cause an incredible amount of stress and anxiety for our men and women in uniform and their loved ones.
Is the VA doing a good job handling?
The VA is still not meeting its mission. That's the bottom line. There are some people who have great experiences in the VA, but there are many, many more who are not even able to get the care or benefits that they've earned through their service. And that's where we've got to focus on making sure that our VA is providing that VIP 5-star service to every single veteran that comes and knocks on their door and says, I need help.
And it would take more funding.
It would take more funding, but it would take a responsible use of those dollars. We've seen too often how, clinics or hospitals that have been planned have gone, over $1 billion over budget and are taking way longer than necessary. Or if you have a top-heavy bureaucracy, those dollars, instead of going to more care providers and going to making sure ultimately that care is delivered, it's going to unnecessary and top-heavy administrative costs.
So now you're setting up the difference between you and the front runner at this point, Bernie Sanders, who agrees with Medicare for all and outlaw private insurance. You still believe we should have a government option, but also maintain private insurance to give people a choice.
I do. I think that it's important people be able to make the choices that best work for themselves and their loved ones. We cannot leave behind people in this country who need health care but simply don't have a good job or don't have much money to pay for it. This is impacting more and more families across the country. My plan is a single payer plus plan that guarantees quality health care for every single American, while still maintaining that private option. If you have a great employer-sponsored plan or something that you have that you're happy with, then you should be able to make that choice about what kind of care you want.
But then there's that competition, though. Can private insurance compete with the government that goes into deep deficit spending? You've heard the joke about they have a printing press at the government. They can spend, trillions of dollars. So would that, in essence, push out private health insurance in the long run?
It wouldn't, and I look to countries like Australia who have plans exactly like this, where they have the ability for people to get quality, affordable health care. Under their plan, they call it Medicare there, while also having a very viable private and nonprofit insurance options for those who would like it.
You're here in Hampton Roads tonight doing a town hall in Virginia Beach.
Yes.
Big debate happening in South Carolina tonight, as you know. The front runners are on the stage, and if Tulsi Gabbard were there, what message would you have to both the voters and the front runner Bernie Sanders?
Given that the job that we are all running for asking the American people to allow us to do is to serve as President and Commander-in-Chief, the most important responsibility the President has, it is a disservice to our men and women in uniform, their loved ones, their children and spouses, and our veterans, that the issue of qualifications to serve as Commander-in-Chief, the issue of what kind of leadership you would provide, has been largely set aside as a side issue. This is what I would bring forward and what I'm continuing to bring forward to voters throughout this campaign.
So let's talk about civility for a moment. I know that's one of your big messages as well. I just looked at a poll that I found a couple years ago, an Axios poll from 2018, and it says that 61% of Democrats in this poll say Republicans are racist, bigots, and sexist, and more than 50% of GOP polled Republicans say Democrats are ignorant and spiteful. How can we find a way to draw more people to try to work together to find some common solutions to our problems when we seem to be growing farther and farther apart with our political rhetoric?
You know, there's a quote that I read recently from Abraham Lincoln, and he said, "I don't like that man. I need to know him better." We have to be able to bridge these divides. I bring the unifying leadership to this country to serve as president that reflects throughout my time in Congress, serving now for almost 8 years, bridging that divide. My first 6 years in Congress were as a Democrat under a Republican majority, where if I wanted to get anything done, I had to break through that partisan gridlock. And it really just comes down to treating people with respect, seeing past all of the presumptions that they may have based on the letter next to your name, and instead just saying, hey, we're here to serve. We're here to serve our country. It requires bringing that leadership to the White House, treating all Americans with respect, as well as all of us as a country, making those same steps forward to break through that divisiveness.
How do you make that resonate with voters? We seem to be so encamped in our two sides. The right seems to respond to what the president has said with his rhetoric regarding immigration, regarding nationalism, tariffs, those issues, and on the left, it's Medicare for all, it's free college tuition, and it's millionaires and billionaires, and there seems to be a demonization, if you will, of people who are doing well. How do you turn that away, or turn that around from that particular, from those two sides, to make voters listen to a more moderate message and make them respond to it?
It's something that I've been experiencing throughout our campaign, and it's something I'm already doing. Every single town hall meeting that we have in every part of the country, whether it's a big city or a small town, regardless of region, we have Democrats, Republicans, and independents coming together, not because they're expecting one message or another, but because they recognize that our strength in this country comes from when we stand together as Americans. Understanding we're not going to agree on everything. We may even strongly disagree on certain issues, but when we treat each other with respect, we can bring those unique perspectives that can help increase that understanding about why you believe the things you believe or the positions that you hold that allow us to deliver solutions for the American people and move forward.
So what would you tell Bernie Sanders on that debate stage at this point?
That I bring a unique experience. I would actually bring this message to the American people. My message is to the voters of the country that I bring a unique perspective and experience given my 17 years of service in the military, my nearly 8 years in Congress in the area of foreign policy and national security that is far greater than most of the other candidates combined. And that matters. As a soldier, I know deeply the incredibly the powerful consequences of the decisions the Commander-in-Chief makes, and it requires someone who's ready to do that job on day one.
How do you feel about your chances on Super Tuesday? That's
We're working hard. It is a big day. We're working hard. We're working hard.
Don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, what do you think your chances are?
We'll see. I'm leaving the pollsters and the pundits to do what they do, and I'm just focused on continuing to get out and meet voters, which is why I'm really happy to be able to be here in Virginia Beach and get to bring my message to the voters here.
That's good. The $15 minimum wage is something that you backed, and most Democrats back this. But then when you look at the numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 1/4% of wage earners in the country make the minimum wage. And a lot of economists say that we would lose 1.3 million jobs if it were mandated to pay $15 an hour. So is the trade-off worth it? The fact that you would raise some more people on the scale. What about the detriment to business? Is that trade-off worth it?
I think there's a different story being told by those business owners who have made that decision themselves without any mandate coming from the state or federal government that recognizes when they value their employees, they're able to pay them more, and they're getting more from those employees who feel like they're a valued member of the team. It's important to see how, even as the cost of living has dramatically increased over the last couple of decades, even the last 10 years, that minimum wage has not increased in a commensurate way, which is why we're seeing most families in this country really struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. I'll just add, you know, I come from a family of small business owners. My parents, I grew up working in our family restaurant, and understand very much how hard it is for small business owners, the backbone of our economy, to do what they do. I think that when we talk about the minimum wage, we can level the field through our tax code, tax deductions, et cetera, so they are not treated in the same way that you would treat a Walmart or a McDonald's or you know, these massive national or multinational chains.
And on the question of a woman's right to choose,
yeah.
You do take a more moderate position than many of your Democratic colleagues. Bernie Sanders recently said, and we go back to Bernie again because he's the front runner, there is no room in the Democratic Party for someone who is pro-life. What does Tulsi Gabbard say to that?
I disagree. The Democratic Party that I joined back when I was 20 or 21 years old in Hawaii, when I first started thinking about politics, was a party that was an open tent, a big tent party that was open to bringing different people together who had different ideas or positions on issues. But it was really core, the soul of the party was focused on fighting for working people, on bringing voice to the voiceless, on protecting our environment. And as the Democratic nominee, that is where I would lead our party back to.
And will you support the ticket? Whatever happens in November, will Tulsi Gabbard be on board with whoever the Democratic nominee is?
Yes.
Does you see, or that, excuse me, do you see yourself being on that ticket if you're not the winner?
I have no idea what will happen. This will be the decision that voters have to make here in a very short time of who they would like to see as the Democratic nominee, and that's exactly where my attention's focused.
Anybody talk to you about a possible vice president
No.
Slot on the ticket?